And we are live.
A guy door a radar site, and the last thing he sees is a Hellfire missile coming right towards him.
Thanks for joining, folks. Milky Way Galaxy team for the win. I'm going to play some original music for you, and I'm going to be back in 3 minutes. Please tell your friends to join the chat. All right, I apologize for the delay. That track called Lost Luggage is available at soundclick.com/GoldenCat-Productions. Let's look at some space weather type stuff. Let's turn down the music a little bit. Look at the sun at 171 angstroms. We see this active region here is now only a plage. However, if you look on the eastern limb, you will see sunspot 2736 rising with authority. And it's already producing a little bit of X-ray flares. Let's look at another view. How about 304 angstroms? Keep in mind, this is 48 hours. Shrink it down one size there so you can see the timestamps. That rising old sunspot has gone almost all the way around the sun and has got a lot of activity coming out of it. Let's zoom in. A lot of filaments, a lot of plasma, a lot of magnetohydrodynamic intensity. So we are keeping an eye on that one, and we'll be looking at it on different views in a moment. But first, let's look at the magnetic lines. In 193 angstroms. There are the magnetic lines. And you can see a lot of magnetic field being held back from this area here. Got a lot of closed magnetic lines there. Also, I would note the differences between the North Pole and the South Pole. See all these open looking lines here? And see how there are no open looking lines here? That's significant, and it has to do with solar cycles. And let me just head back to where I was here. Might as well look at 94 angstroms also while we're on the SDO page. By the way, this track is called Afghanistan's Banana Stand. And I have no idea where if it's available for download. I don't think this one's available for anything. Not yet, because we're not releasing stuff all at the same time. There is so much music to put out. You think you know, but you have no idea. All right, so there's a 94 angstrom view. Let's move on. And let's close that tab entirely. Let's look at stereo A at 171 angstroms. I have this already loaded for you. Here we can see that sunspot. And it's still pretty beefy. So there you see on the timestamps, you're looking at up to 2 o'clock on Thursday. That's the latest data you'll get on this stereo A. This is 171 angstroms. This looks gold on the SDO instrument. On stereo A, the 171 angstroms wavelength looks blue. So there's that. And let's move on to the real-time solar wind. So here's the last day of that. And we see wild swings all over the place here. Now the BT is not super high. It's actually come down a little bit. So the total strength of the B field has dropped over the past couple days. And we see the Z angle, the Z component of the BT-BZ is now convergent on the 0 line. And we see several fleeting connections with 180 degrees around here and around here, little sputters in here. Those are all coronal hole magnetic connections, and those are all associated with earthquakes. Solar wind density is at 4.87 protons per cubic centimeter, and solar wind speed is still elevated, although it has come down a little bit. It is now at 471 kilometers per second. This track is called Honey, I Shrunk Your Soul. Honey, I Shrunk Your Soul in all caps. Let's look at spaceweather.com because there's some funky lights happened last night. There you go. How about that? What do you think of that, folks? Look a little strange to you there? Look a little odd? It's from sounding rockets. So don't worry about an alien invasion yet. Here's some more. You've got auroras and rockets at the same time. So the main reason that we're here is to look at the 10.7 centimeter radio flux, which is back up to 72. So solar activity is on the increase, and we have that big old sunspot just about to make its second appearance in the Earth side facing portion of the disk. Let's look at the gong too. Here's some 2-hour-old data. Now we're looking at a crossing of the current sheet coming up here. Your heliospheric polarity switch, if you will. So let's look at the last frame. We're still about 24 to 36 hours out from this. And keep in mind, this could suddenly change now, especially because there's a sunspot. very close to rising. Let's look at some more data at spaceweathernews.com. We did see a small X-ray flare there in the B range only. So a little bit of X-ray flaring. And once again, it looks like there's a little bit of X-ray flaring going on during our live stream. So for that, we thank you, son. Now, I would like to comment also about this undulating solar wind stream. I believe that is because there are some coronal mass ejections mixed into that high-speed coronal pole wind stream. And that's why we're getting these extreme perturbations, because there are little puffs of plasma coming out that are not significant coronal mass ejections, but they are affecting this with a kind of a push me, pull you kind of an effect due to their electromagnetic influence on the plasma. The magnetometer has recently peaked out, and it looks like we're back into a downtrend here, and we're not expecting any real big perturbations in this until the crossing of the current sheet here. And even then, we shouldn't see huge perturbations in the magnetometer. KP index is at 2. There's your GOES electron flux, which, by the way, is measured at the F2 ionosphere layer. There are your charging hazards. Some minor charging hazards over India right now. And that is not the current F2 layer. There's the current F2 layer. Looking totally normal, a little bit on the discharge side, especially considering how high the solar wind speed is. And where are we at? It scrolled us back up the page. That's okay, we'll wait. Good God. All right, here we go. There are your auroras. There's the borealis. And there's the australis. Look at the LASCO C3 real quick here. And not a whole lot going on there. No halos. No significant coronal mass ejections. A little one out of the east there, coming out of that active region, or that sunspot, 2736. Keep in mind, we are at 0 sunspots, technically speaking, because the active region facing the Earth is not a sunspot. Here are your magnetosphere movies, as we show you these every day. Since you can't request the data, at least you'll be able to see 4 hours of the magnetosphere movies. If anybody would like to archive all of this stuff, please do so. It's called Crooked as Silence, and here's your velocity. Actually looking kind of low, considering the current solar wind speed. Here's the density. Nothing too extraordinary going on there. Magnetohydrodynamics, a new, very important term that many people aren't even aware of yet. Here's the pressure. And I'll be amazed if it doesn't refresh right in the middle. We've got a little bit more pressure in the magnetotail than in the leading edge there at the bow shock. And with a fairly discharged F2 ionosphere layer, the Earth is in a state of charging. Here are your geospace ground perturbation maps. We look at these daily, especially for you pole flip, pole excursion, magnetic reversal enthusiasts. Here's a situation over the poles. We see a spiral over the South Pole, as we often do, resembling a Birkeland current, since that is a Birkeland current, which is causing the magnetic perturbations, which would be the field-aligned currents from the sun, folks. Here's a view over the globe. Keep in mind, this is the delta B, which is the changes in the B field. Not a direct measurement, but delta B. In other words, changes in the B field. Hope that makes sense. Here's a track called Dr. Steelshank. Shout out Sam Afif. Dr. Sam Afif. He'll always be the Arabian nightmare. Let's look at earthquakes. As we saw, one biggin. Now this is a very unsettling earthquake here over Japan, a 5.8 magnitude. Check and see if it caused any tsunamis. As we saw another large quake, which we'll get to in a moment. And no tsunami warning, advisory, watch, or threat, folks. That's good news. All right, let's get back to it here. There's a 5.0 at Mayotte, right at the African Rift Zone. 5.2 at Tonga. 4.4 at Russia. There's a 6.5 at the South Sandwich Islands, very far south, near Antarctica. There's a 4.8 at Chile. 4.6 at Indonesia. 5.8 off the coast of Ecuador. So this is a large earthquake uptick, folks, going on last couple days. 4.4 at Honduras. Here's a 4.6 at Japan. Pretty far away from that larger quake. A 4.5 at Tajikistan. 4.4 at the West Chile Rise. I think one just came in. Got a 4.1 in Mexico there too, folks. .3 at the Mid-Indian Ridge. 4.8 near the Azores, which is part of Portugal, by the way. 4.6 at the Mid-Indian Ridge again, another quake at the same place. 4.4 at Vostok, not to be confused with Lake Vostok in Antarctica. 4.6 in India. 4.1 in Azerbaijan. Yeah, that 4.1 in Mexico just happened. As well as that one. All right, so let's draw in the earthquake watch zones here. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to point this big arrow at Japan, because Japan has had the biggest quake at depth. So for you new viewers out there who may not be aware, large quakes at a depth beyond 100 kilometers tend to foretell quakes at the surface. And there is some solar forcing involved associated with coronal holes here, as well as low pressure systems. So let's just take a look at this area real quick. By the way, Google, thank you for fixing the Hangouts, the Chrome browser extension. We appreciate it, as we can now share our whole screen And that makes things much better. Much, much better. Let's get the satellite view. And close this freaking window. Let's try that again. There we go. All right, so here's the location of that 5.8 magnitude quake at 300 plus kilometers depth. I'm going to zoom out slowly so we can see where to look on the map. It looks like a bunch of underwater volcanoes right there. Check it out. So that's where it's located, basically due south of Tokyo. So let's go to windy.com and look at the pressure maps, as we do see a low pressure not too far from the Sandwich Islands. Let's go have a look at Japan. And sure enough, there's a low pressure right where the quake happened, folks. Check it out. And it has moved the map for me. Thank you, Windy. By the way, this is a great mobile app. And it's a super good website, too. Stop putting in my location. I don't want you to put in my location. I'm trying to look at Japan. Thank you. Anyway, there's your low pressure associated with the earthquake. Let's move on to volcanoes. What do we got? Shivaluch, an uptick there, producing a 22,000-foot ash plume. Mount Ibu, 7,000-foot ash plume there. Mount Bromo, 10,000-foot ash plume there. Tacona with a 7,000-foot plume. Popocatépetl, more explosive activity, continuing with a 19,000-foot ash plume. Revenador with a 14,000-foot ash plume. Sabancaya, uptick there with a 24,000-foot ash plume. And Planchon Petero with a 15,000-foot ash plume. So we see a volcanic uptick as well. If you're not familiar with Galaxy Zoo, check out zooniverse.org and help us classify galaxies like this. Hey, look, folks, there's a small bulge. There's a small central bulge in this galaxy. What do you have to say about that? Is it merging or disturbed? I don't think so. Any features? Just irregular. And a dust lane. And a possible overlap. And there you go. A galaxy's been classified. So set yourself a login. Maybe you can get published in an astronomy paper. Who knows? Here are your planet locations. If you're not familiar, if you're a new viewer, Stereo A is located right about here. Stereo B is located right about here. When we were looking at the Stereo A image of the sun, we were looking at it from this angle. Stereo A is a great resource to see coronal mass ejections that are Earth-facing, as well as get an early indication of what kind of space weather will be rising over the eastern limb of the sun. Here's where the planets will be in 7 days. Approaching the Jupiter-Saturn portion of the solar system. We do have a nonprofit organization now, and by the end of the year, your donations will be tax deductible. We are looking at publishing no less than 3 science papers. And we're not going to tell you anything else about that. There is also an Instagram page. Check it out. For those of you who know me well, you may realize that I am a bike racer, not a cycling fan, because to be a fan is to be a fanatic. And I'm not fanatical about anything. So the difference between cycling fans and bike racers is that bike racers take vacations from cycling, and cycling fans go on vacation to go cycling. You get the variation? Anyway, follow us on Instagram. We put up stuff like pro driving tips and various stuff that's a lot more personal than the YouTube page. Don't stalk us. If you haven't subscribed and pressed like, please do so. We've got hundreds of videos, and we haven't missed a daily space weather video for approaching a year. If you like social media, check out minds.com/smAsho. We got a page there too. Not to mention a Twitter account. Now, I don't tweet. However, our smAsho staff has obliged us in posting our videos on Twitter. So for that, we thank you. If you're not familiar with Long Trail, Vermont, they make some great beers. And this one's coming out this summer. I already found out. Yes, blackberry wheat. I love wheat beers. My favorite beer of all is Francis Cotter. One of the only beers, if not the only wheat beer, produced with only wheat and no barley. We also have a GoFundMe page set up, and it looks like there's $15 of the $5,500 goal, trying to make $5,500 by May 1st to get a new road bike and get back into the proper training mode where I can ride with world-class athletes every Thursday night and get back into putting up some podiums on time trial events. Here's what's going on in the U.S. I'll give you a quick water vapor map as a value-added service. Tropical Tidbits was utterly wrong, by the way. It did not snow on us here at all yesterday. We got 0 flakes. There was a little sleet yesterday, but that was about it. We do have a pretty crazy convergence zone here over Texas. We're going to zoom in on that in a minute. It is generating a bunch of lightning. There's also some pretty violent activity there over northern Iowa. So there's that. Let's actually zoom in on this to get a little better understanding of this one, because it's quite the pressure gradient zone, let's say. Pretty good view of that. Man, oh man. If you're in any of these locations, you may want to have a helmet or a kayak. Don't have your moat in your castle overfilled. All right, let me get to the chat here, as I've been ignoring it. Good morning, Harry Wire, smAsho staff, Terrence Mooney, from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Good morning, Dakota Horn. Oh, thank you. Thank you, smAsho staff. Afghanistan's Banana Stand is on soundclick.com/goldencap-productions, a link you can find in the description. All right, let's move on to some more stuff here. We're going to ignore Tropical Tidbits, and I'm going to show you lightningmaps.org because it's awesome. And let's look at this spot over Iowa. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now let's just do a little example here. So the main cell is right around here, it looks like. If you're located somewhere in that area, you will actually see this map. And you'll be able to actually predict when the sound gets to you. You'll see the signal on the map first, and then you'll see this circle expanding. And that's a guess of the actual sound waves there. So it's super interesting. If you find yourself in a lightning storm, check out lightningmaps.org. It could actually save your life, believe it or not. Heavy lightning in Texas on that convergence line. Let's take a look at the radar. As I am a proper meteorology nerd, shut off the sound here. All right, so we may have some, I'm not sure what's going on there. Check out this area, folks. Now, we don't usually see Sasquatches so far south, so perhaps that's some sort of a chupacabra party going on there in Texas. I'm not sure if they have any Sasquatch or Yeti or Bigfoot, so we're not going to attribute that to a Bigfoot fart. It doesn't appear to be a Bigfoot fart. Perhaps it's somebody gating in from a different dimension. Anyway, that is one significant line of storms there. Let's zoom in a little bit. Could be tornadoes generated from that one and things like damaging hail. Let's see how close we can get with the radar. And that storm is stagnating too. Not particularly good news. There's a water vapor. So that's why it's stagnating, folks. Until this little system here reaches equilibrium. Pretty much what's happening is the moist air is trying to make the dry air wet. And one other thing I would notice, look at these concentric lines right here. They're basically going like that. Perfect Hall current lines. We look at this all the time. As there is more to your weather than simply heat and barometric pressure and wind. There's more to it than that. And it has to do with Hall currents. Let's move on and not get in the weeds. It's not letting me advance. All right. We are frozen. There we go. Well, there's that storm. Let's zoom back out and take a close-up of that one in Iowa, as it looks pretty nasty too. Wow, that's a concentrated storm there. Jeez. Hopefully not producing too much flooding. Let me get back to the NASA. And we'll take a look at that one too. So that, at least that one's a fast mover. It's not going to just train out over the same location. That one in Texas is looking nasty, folks. All right, and let's move on here to Solon.info. Just showing you a comparison of the latest solar cycles. Looking at cycle 24 and wondering when 25 is going to begin. Now, it's tough to tell as it takes months of overlap before we can say for sure what cycle we're in. And that's why we're looking for things like negative polarity plages, reverse polarity plages rather, and reverse polarity sunspots. We've seen a few, and we've been seeing some odd cycle 24 sunspots very high off the equator. I don't want to go into a full explanation of that because this video is already getting pretty long. Let's keep going. Parker Solar Probe completes second close approach to the sun. Good times. The second perihelion has been achieved, and it sent back beacon status A throughout the entire perihelion, indicating that it's operating well and all instruments are collecting data. We haven't received any data from the first perihelion yet, and we are super excited about the Parker Solar Probe, excited enough to save an image of it. You want to see some great entertainment? If you like video games, check out The Angry Video Game Nerd. If you're not familiar with it, well, he's got billions of views.
When it changes from day to night, that would actually be helpful. So what the game designers figured is this. It isn't absolutely necessary for me to read about how to find Dracula's castle or what I'm supposed to do with an oak stake. But what I do need to...
All right, that may be a little bit too much. Check him out. Angry Video Game Nerd on the smAsho channel. Yes, good times. One of the first YouTubers that I started to watch all of his videos. Excuse me. Next, I direct you to Cosmic Podia, part of NASA. And we'll leave links to this in the description. Ask us about the sun. So this is a nice FAQ page. Some of it is going to be completely opposite of what I think about the sun. However, most of this is legit. So if they're going to say anything like, what's the sun made out of? I would take that with not a grain of salt, not a shaker of salt, a truckload of salt. And oh, here's one. Check it out. Weakened heliosphere and global warming. A recent article mentioned that the heliosphere has been weakening for the past 25 years. Could such weakening allow more interstellar energy to arrive at Earth? Could it be a cause of global warming? Oh man, what do they say about that? Oh, he doesn't expect radiation carried by the extragalactic cosmic rays to contribute much to the climate because he's apparently not aware that cosmic rays cause cloud nucleation, and cloud nucleation causes an increased albedo, and increased albedo causes a colder planet. Yeah. Also, increased volcanic activity causes increased cloud nucleation too, folks, as well as the actual plumes. And all those contrails that you think are chemtrails, they're cooling the planet too. Planes are cooling the planet, not warming it. Let that sink in. We invite you to be an entropy buster, which is why we created the page on Facebook, Entropy Busters. If you're not familiar with entropy, entropy is the tendency for things in the universe to go from a state of order to a state of disorder. So, for instance, if your skin is perfect, that's order. And if you get a brush burn, that's chaos. An injury is entropy. A brand new car out of the showroom is order. A jalopy sitting in a junkyard is entropy. And we're busting it. And that's part of the reason why we have the channel and the nonprofit organization and all of the social media accounts and so on. So we invite you to be an entropy buster, because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? Get out of your comfort zone, folks. You need to do stuff on a regular basis that you suck at. We highly encourage it. In fact, I wasn't any good at producing music when I started. But then I started making things like this. Which, by the way, we put this up full volume yesterday. If you want to listen to Vaporizer, it is on our list of videos. Let's look at bike brands real quick. One of the reasons why we ride the brands that we ride is because of the frame geometry. Some companies have long top tubes. Some companies have short top tubes. So, for instance, for me, a Cervelo is a bad choice because I have a short torso and long legs. So these bikes have too long of a top tube for me. And that's part of the reason why I'm getting a felt AR3. And it turns out I'm not getting a 2018, I'm getting a 2019, yes. So that's all in the works. Ignore Focus. They have left the country. Now, the shop owner, Becky Quinn, she rides a Look. That's her track bike, I think, or it's a similar model. And Look is the inventor of the clipless pedal. Clipless pedals are one of the best modifications you can make on any bike. So if you want to go out and put some extra mileage in, get some clipless pedals, go someplace like theveloshop.net, and then go someplace like Pedals and get yourself some pedals and shoes. Clip in, increase your power output by like 60%. Let's look at a custom view of the sun before we close out this live stream. We're going to look at only today from dark zero until the current time. And we will use, let's do the 131 angstroms this time. We don't usually use that one, not for any particular reason. So there you have it, folks. Thank you, donors, especially. You have no idea how much of a difference you make. Thank you, subscribers. Thanks for those of you who tuned into the live chat. We are about to be out of here. We'll probably be back at you later this afternoon once again. It's spring training camp, and look for a small uptick in our output. Let me check the chat. I don't see any questions or comments. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. We are out of here. Remember, don't get vaporized. When you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Use the proper instruments. Don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your arteries.